Real values.
Real people.
Real community radio.
Well, I'm pleased to say we've come to our first interview of the show, and I'm going to say it's University Hospitals Dorset NHS Foundation Trust. You might be expecting when I say that it's going to be BJ Wolflow, who's been with us many times on the show. She has retired. So, in fact, we now have to say a very good welcome to Dr. Matt Thomas, who is the Deputy Chief Medical Officer. Matt, are you there?
Yeah, good afternoon, Gordon.
Good afternoon to you, sir. Before we chat too much about the hospital, could I just find out, what does a Deputy Chief Medical Officer actually do?
Good question. I ask myself sometimes. I'm part of the management system at University Hospitals Dorset, helping to try and make the hospitals run as efficiently as possible. That's just part of my job. And the other part of my job, I'm a doctor at University Hospitals Dorset looking after older people.
That makes a lot of sense. That probably keeps you very busy, I would imagine. So which hospitals fall under your remit and care then?
So University Hospitals Dorset, of course, now encompasses Bournemouth Hospital, Christchurch Hospital and Poole Hospital. So we're responsible for all three. The major acute work going on, obviously, at Poole and at Bournemouth.
Okay. And so I think one of the things that would be really helpful for us to discuss would be the COVID journey, I guess, and where things are up to now, because it's been an absolutely horrible rollercoaster ride for everybody, but for the front line, it really has been the NHS. And there's been some clear, real victories, like getting the jabs out into millions of people in record time. That's just been amazing. But obviously with Omicron, the situation has, in the papers, certainly been looking quite scary for the NHS, on a precipice, as one of the titles would have said. Where are things up to at the moment? How is the NHS in our area coping?
I think we're coping well, but we're aware of the pressures that there are. And I think the pressures come from two places. One, COVID and Omicron. I'm hoping that vaccination, and I was going to mention that because I think vaccination rates in Dorset through the public attending and through the service that have been delivering that have been fantastic. And I'm hoping that protects us to a degree from what we've seen elsewhere, but only time will tell us that. But what's happening now is unlike the original wave, where perhaps people weren't attending hospital and we had space and opportunity to manage the COVID. Now we're dealing with everything else, as well as trying to recover our services and get operations done that perhaps have been held back. So we're busier than ever, and our staff continually busy through this whole time. So really important that we look after our staff, but try and manage this really busy time as the next few months go by.
Well, definitely I'd like to say, and I'm sure it's on behalf of all our listeners, thank you so much to all the people who've worked so hard within the hospitals to take care of our population during the times that it's been so manic. I can imagine the stress levels must be through the roof. So thank you very much, everybody, for that. At the moment, right now, is intensive care full? Are the hospital beds packed out with COVID patients, or is it a much more sort of safe level? How much extra capacity do you have?
So we do have extra capacity, but we are above our normal levels for intensive care. So our intensive care is probably operating at twice the amount of patients that it normally would have. Half of that being COVID patients, the other half the normally unwell patients that come in, or the operations that come into hospital. We have dedicated wards dealing with COVID patients. They remain extremely busy. Our hope is that we don't need to expand further, but we have plans and have solutions if that is required. But as I said, I'm hoping that the public's behaviour, we've all seen people using masks more. That's really good. We're hoping the vaccination rates, we've got excellent rates in this area, particularly compared to London. I'm hoping all that means that we won't need to do that. But if we do need to, we're ready. That
sounds like a bad place to be in, but it sounds like you've got some capacity, so that's at least good. And I am seeing in London, according to the charts, that the hospitalisation rate is dipping there, and so hopefully maybe we're past the worst of this current wave. I don't want to speak too soon, but I hope that might be the case. Can I just ask a question about ambulance service? Do ambulance fall under your remit as well?
No, ambulances don't, but obviously we have a great deal to do with the ambulance service because they're conveying patients to our emergency departments, but they don't come directly under our remit, but we try and work as closely with them as possible to try and help resolve the pressures that are both on them and on us.
That's helped to understand. So I was going to mention, so I was chatting to someone who on the 3rd of January phoned for an ambulance and there was a patient bleeding and semi-conscious and things like that. And they were told it was a blue light emergency, but after an hour, an ambulance hadn't come, but the patient was fully conscious by then. So it all de-escalated, which was good. Is it COVID causing problems then for staff? I know you can't speak on behalf of the ambulance service, but in general terms, is it a problem that staff within the NHS and ambulance service are isolating because of COVID themselves, and therefore there's too much pressure on the system?
So I think that partly that there will be parts of the system that have lost staff because they're isolating, but I think it's a bigger thing, affecting the whole system. So if you imagine that there's a patient who is waiting to be out of hospital because luckily they've improved, but they're waiting for services that need to get them out of hospital, then that means that bed's occupied. A patient can't move from the emergency department into that bed until it's empty. If the patient can't get out of the emergency department, the ambulance may not be able to offload the patient as easily. Therefore, the ambulance is waiting at the hospital, and therefore the ambulance isn't on the road picking up the patient. So you can see how the flow can tend to back up and create this problem for the ambulance service. And what we all need to do through both health and social care and families and loved ones as well is to try and find ways of trying to move patients through the system as effectively and safely as possible. Perhaps even where waiting for care, loved ones can offer to help support until that care is available, so that patient can be where they need to be, at home, rather than being in a hospital bed when it's no longer absolutely necessary. So allowing us to free up the flow.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, talking about things that people can do to help, can we talk about vaccinations with regards to those people who haven't yet taken up the vaccination? So I can't remember, when was the first vaccination given to someone? Was it how long ago was it? How many months back was the first vaccination?
It was. I can't remember the lady's name, but it was December 20, I think, was the first one. And obviously, there's been an enormous rollout since then. And I think that the vaccination rates in our older patients in Dorset has been very good. But it does tend to drop off as one goes down the younger age group. And I would encourage people, it's not too late to get it done. It's not too late if you've had vaccines 1 and 2 to get your booster. And it's not too late to start having the vaccine. It will help you, but also it will help those around you.
See, I think it's well worth getting it. My kids have been vaccinated. My whole family's been done. We're probably low risk ourselves, but actually we've got relatives who would be high risk, and getting the vaccination done was a no-brainer, just from the point of view of making sure we kept other people safe. So Absolutely. If people want to get a vaccination, do they just approach their doctor at this point?
I think look on the national website and look for slots. They're still available, and get it done. I think if you've got concerns and you want to talk to somebody, there are services to do that. Because I know that people have obviously had concerns and won't have had a vaccine for one reason or another, and I'm sure that we can help dispel any myths or concerns that people have got.
Okay, and I think the only last thing I wanted to just talk about was the hospital. It's going through a big building project and all sorts of stuff that's going on there, and all these things and all the service you do cost lots of money, and there's a charity, isn't there, connected with the hospital that does fundraising. If people are listening and thinking, I wish there was something I could do to help the hospital and help support the staff and the patients, how do people connect and find out ways that they might be able to help to raise funds and be part of that community?
So easiest thing is to look on social media and contact the charity through that. That way, look at our website and look for the charity logo there and contact in that way. Always happy to have people come forward with ideas and very grateful for the support that people can give us. But probably the biggest support people can do at the moment is to wear a mask, get a vaccine, and see what they can do to help get their loved ones out of hospital.
That's definitely something that I think many people can easily do. So are there any other things you'd like to add? Any information that I haven't thought to ask about?
No, I think just a big thanks to the people in Dorset. I think, as I said, the majority have been vaccinated, which is great. People are approaching things with the right caution and sense, wearing masks, etc. We just ask people to continue to do that sort of thing. And I think just be tolerant of the pressures that are on the health services, both in hospital and in primary care with GPs, on the ambulance trust and in social services. There's a phrase that I like to use to remind colleagues about at work, and that's civility saves lives. When we're all under pressure, it's really important that we remember to be civil and courteous to each other. Well,
I've got to say, having spent a bit of time in the Bournemouth Hospital, I've been very, very impressed and very grateful for the staff there. So I think I've certainly received a lot of kindness from them. So thank you very much, Dr. Matt Thomas, Deputy Chief Medical Officer for the Universities Hospitals Dorset NHS Foundation Trust. It's been good to speak today. Thanks for all the information that you've brought to our listeners as well. And once again, on behalf of everybody listening, thank you so much to you and the NHS staff for all you're doing to keep us safe. God bless you, Matt.
Thank you, God.
This is Hope FM.